Welcome to North Bay 101, a weekly analysis of top stories from California's North Bay region. Reporters and editors from 5 surrounding counties take an in-depth look at the headlines shaping our community. I'm your host, Greta Mart. On today's show,
local lawmakers are unlikely to really push this aggressively because they'll find themselves getting voted out of office.
We're taking a closer look at coming new statewide landscaping rules for homes in high fire risk areas like a lot of Sonoma County.
But it's really an incredibly important thing that we're all doing to protect our own homes. And when we're protecting our own homes, we're hopefully protecting our neighbors.
Let's jump right in. First, we speak with Danielle Venton, a science reporter at KQED. Tell me about a story that you recently produced about Zero Zone. Did I get that correct?
Zone Zero.
Zone
exactly.
Zero. Okay.
Yeah. So Zone Zero is a somewhat new step some homeowners will be required to take to protect their homes against wildfire. The authority comes from the Board of Forestry, which has the right to tell homeowners, hey, you have to keep your home prepared for wildfires.
This is a state board?
Yes, the Board of Forestry. It's within the Department of Natural Resources.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I haven't heard of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So in general, when we think of defensible space steps,
I've heard that term a lot.
exactly, yeah. Keep defensible space. So in general, those have been things that are like 100 feet from the home or 30 feet from the home. And those things are primarily about slowing an oncoming flaming front or giving firefighters a safe space to work if they need to defend your home from a fire. And those continue to be great steps to do and very important. We also know that most homes that burn in a fire are not being attacked by the wall of flames, by the flaming front. They are being burnt down because of embers. Up to 90% of homes.
Wow.
Are burned down from embers. You think of Coffee Park, right?
Right.
The flaming front didn't go across the freeway and take Coffee Park. It was embers driven on the wind that flew out in front of the fire, found their way into homes, and then burned those homes down from the inside out.
I see.
And that's how most homes burned down. So Zone Zero is the first defensible space step that's designed to prevent embers from getting into the house. What it looks like is a zone 5 feet from the wall of the house out 5 feet where there is nothing burnable. So rock, pavement, bare dirt. There are exceptions for mature trees. And some of these regulations are still getting ironed out. You know, we'll still have to see how they get finalized, but I think that the Board of Forestry is considering making potted plants okay also. Huh. But this will be a big paradigm shift in how homes look and what we think of attractive landscaping looking like.
Right.
It also will be an extremely powerful step for homeowners to protect their homes from the fires that we know will come again. We are also seeing more and more insurance companies require their policy holders to take this step, to pull out all of their plants, to change their wood fence to a metal fence, to move a burnable hot tub away from the house as a requirement for their policy to get renewed. And what I think is interesting is that just talking about how is this actually going to spread in California, local politicians and state lawmakers are sort of reticent to push this because it can be unpopular.
Definitely.
And so
I can think of all the people who've spent so much money on their landscaping.
Well, yeah, me included, right? But local lawmakers are unlikely to really push this aggressively because they'll find themselves getting voted out of office. But if we see more and more insurance companies require this of homeowners that they think are at real risk of future fires, then that may be the most effective way to drive adoption that we'll see. It's going to be interesting. You know, it's not in all areas, right? Like I live on a gridded street kind of not too far from downtown Petaluma. I'm not in an area where I have to do this. This is for homes that are in very high fire risk areas.
Okay, I got it. We did some kind of story on it recently, and I looked on the maps. I remember east of Santa Rosa was part of it. There was a significant amount of Sonoma County was within this requirement.
Yeah, I mean, Sonoma County, our beautiful county, has a lot of areas that are at very high fire risk. I'm thinking of areas that have burned before, or that, that may burn in the future. Things along the Russian River, Guerneville. We kind of know the landscape that looks. We kind of know how high fire risk landscape looks. It tends to be in areas where it gets really windy, where it's very wooded, where there's significant slopes. Those tend to be conditions that favor bad fires.
Okay, got it. And tell me, I mean, how did this whole thing, you said it was passed several years ago, or a few years ago. Tell me about that. But then now it's coming into implementation now. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, the state has dragged its feet on this for a number of years. State lawmakers, legislators passed it. I believe it was in 2021, and passed a bill saying, hey, the State Board of Forestry needs to look at this and should have regulations in place by 2023. 2023 came and went. There was nothing. And then after the LA fires happened, Gavin Newsom issued an executive order that said, all right, State Board of Forestry, you actually have to do this, and it should be done by the end of this year, which was the end of 2025. End of 2025 came and went, and the State Board of Forestry hadn't finalized those regulations. There was a lot of pushback from really well-moneyed areas like Brentwood in LA, even though they had just narrowly escaped being devastated by those fires. We are seeing things roll out. It now applies to brand new construction in these extremely high fire risk zones, as designated by CAL FIRE, and it will not apply to existing homes for a further 3 or 4 years. A lot of fires could happen between then and now. It's a step that can take a fair amount of money to pull out beautiful bushes, to re-landscape, but it is considered the most accessible. It also costs a lot of money to put a new roof on your home, right?
Right.
It's considered the most accessible, kind of doable home hardening step that most homeowners can take.
Are we talking? So we're talking about landscaping, or what about like a wood deck? You said something about you said a hot tub. So are we talking? Does this include the wood decks? If you step out your sliding glass door and you're on a deck, does that count?
Last I heard, it does not include wood decks, but that it does include wood fences. So we know that when there's a fire in a neighborhood, wood fences can act as a wick leading the fire to the house.
Okay.
But an established wood deck is not included, is my understanding of the latest regulations, nor does it include mature trees. Mm-hmm. The trees just have to be limbed up so that there's not a limb within 5 feet of the house. And just if I can get nerdy with you for a second, the reason it's 5 feet is that science has shown that when winds are high, they create a whirl 5 feet in diameter at the base of a wall.
Wow.
And so if you have a plant at the base of the wall, those quickly dry out in fire conditions and become like charcoal briquettes at the base of your wall. And, it is that gives, having charcoal briquettes at the base of a wall, there's a high likelihood that that's going to catch that wall on fire.
Right. Wow. Okay. And so when do you see these people are really going to start noticing, and when they go to Home Depot to go do a project, they're going to be like, well, wait a minute, I can't even do this. Like, when is that actually going to? Do we know? Did you already answer that?
So it will not apply to any barring, further legislation on this, it won't apply to the existing home stock
Okay, right.
from the state for 3 more years.
3 more years, okay.
It already applies to new construction if you're going to build something brand new in a very high fire risk area. But I'm hearing from people that their insurance company is making them do this as a prerequisite for having their policies renewed. And good insurance is hard to find. We just went through and are trying to slowly emerge from a total insurance crisis in the state that was very much driven by the devastation we've seen from wildfires in the state.
Okay, got it. And what if homeowners just refuse to do this? What will happen to them? I mean,
so I recently spoke to some people who did do this because their insurance company wanted them to, but they had neighbors who had the same insurance, and the insurance company wanted them to do this zone 0 clearing, and they refused. And so they went on the FAIR plan, which is the state's insurer of last resort. It's not a state-run program, but the state set it up. It's run by, it's run independently, and it's supported by other insurance carriers. But it's the place you go when no one else wants your business. It's very expensive. It's lousy insurance. There's lots of problems in LA with them not wanting to cover smoke damage. And you have to buy supplemental insurance. It only covers fire damage. So, when I heard about neighbors refusing to do this and going on the FAIR plan, it made me think what does it make me think? I mean, that's not the decision I would make. It's pretty lousy insurance. And it's not a great plan. And if your neighbor's house catches on fire, your own house is much more likely to burn.
Okay, got it. All right. And just finally, I'm envisioning some new construction, and I'm trying to think of what it'll look like without landscaping. It's
really going to change how things look. It really is. Yeah. I really sympathize with people. People love their plants. I love my plants. It's going to be a big change. I have seen brand new homes in high fire risk areas that have zone 0 just designed in from the get-go, and they're very attractive.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of, there was a new housing development that was in the Sierra foothills, built to like the very highest fire standards. And it was still a beautiful neighborhood. What they did was in the front, in this 5-foot area around the homes, they had river rocks. And they had rocks of various elevations and fountains that, like kind of water features. And then 5 foot out from the home, there were long grasses and ornamental plants. So I think that in 30 years from now, this is going to be a really normal thing. And we're going to enter an era where it's a new challenge for landscape designers and landscape architects to figure out how to make a zone 0 home really beautiful. And I do think they can do it.
Wow, I was just if I could do a career over, I think I would go into landscaping.
It'd be a good time.
Yeah, that would be fun to get creative. That's KQED Science reporter Danielle Venton. Now let's bring in Mimi Enright. Mimi is the program coordinator for the UC Master Gardener program of Sonoma County. Mimi, what can you tell us about Zone 0?
There's been a lengthy review process that's been going on for quite some time. The draft legislation for implementation recommendations is out, and I think we're hoping to see that officially go final in August of this year, is the last I heard from one of our UC Ag and Natural Resources fire advisors. So who it applies to are any residents in what is called the state responsibility area. That's a designation for what firefighting agency has responsibility for fire events in that region. And there's 2 areas, well, there's actually 3, but the 2 that are relevant for us are the state responsibility area, which is really, I would say, predominantly unincorporated Sonoma County, But it also applies to folks who live in the local responsibility area who are in very high fire severity zones. The local responsibility area really mostly tracks along the Highway 1 corridor, but it's more municipal and suburban neighborhoods. So it's important for folks to understand with this new legislation, whether they're in a state responsibility area, in which case it applies to everybody, or if they're in a local responsibility area, in which case they need to understand if they're what fire hazard severity zone they're in.
Okay, is there a website that they can go and look at, type in their address and look up, or?
Yeah, there's lots of great websites and resources for looking it up. Permit Sonoma has a great map where you can key in your address and look up what your fire hazard severity zone is. And then if you just Google, state or local responsibility area, I've got a map that I've been using in presentations recently from the California Natural Resources Agency GIS group, but there's quite a few. I'm sure CAL FIRE has one.
Okay, got
well.
it.
Yeah.
So let's say I have a home, it's in one of these areas. What does that mean for me?
So, there's been a lot of resistance. Zone Zero has been around for the recommendations from fire professionals and scientific researchers. The recommendation has been around for easily 8 or 9 years, but folks have a lot of resistance. So the purpose of Zone Zero, it's your best defense against embers. If you're experiencing significant embers encroaching on your structures during a wildfire event. And the ultimate implementation of a Zone Zero means that you have no organics, no vegetation, nothing that can burn in the 0 to 5 foot perimeter around your structures on your property. I'd say, I think the state was recognizing that there's been resistance to taking out all plant materials, right? All organics, anything flammable in that 0 to 5 foot perimeter. So what they're implementing makes it a little more complex because there's now 2 parts of Zone Zero. And then there's multiple phases for implementation.
Okay, all righty. As a master gardener, how is this going to affect your work?
Yeah, so we've actually been doing educational outreach on what we call sustainable defensible space since the 2017 wildfires complex here in Sonoma County. And a couple of years after that wildfire complex, we've partnered up with some other nonprofit organizations here in Sonoma County to form what we call the Resilient Landscapes Coalition. So that involves the Master Gardener Program in Sonoma County, Fire Safe Sonoma, Habitat Corridor Project, which is a nonprofit advocating for use of native plants, and Sonoma Ecology Center. And in partnership, we've been doing, probably since 2019, regular workshops and educational outreach on the topic of fire preparedness in your home landscape. And really advocating that you don't have to create a moonscape. It is okay to still have plant materials and giving recommendations for how people can do that successfully. We have extensive videos of past events. We have a website we've developed. So we've really created a lot of resources for our community to be better prepared. And now, of course, we need to update all those with this new Zone Zero legislation information. We've been educating on it since it's still in draft, but we've been educating on it to create awareness for folks. And then, of course, once it goes final with the implementation recommendations, we'll be incorporating that into all our outreach that we do.
And from what I understand, it is in effect now for new construction, but for homes that already exist, it's going to still be a couple years before. Are people going to be coming around with, tickets? They're going to be looking at your landscape and writing you a ticket for?
I don't know what enforcement is going to look like. And, for the state responsibility area, the responsible agency is CAL FIRE. And for the local responsibility area, your responsible agency are your local fire departments. So I don't know how all enforcement, what that's going to look like. But just like there's now 2 parts of Zone Zero, there's 2 phases for this new Zone Zero implementation. Phase 1 is hopefully what everybody's already been doing, which is it has to be implemented within the first 3 years for when the implementation is finalized. And you need to be removing any combustible items like firewood, removing any debris like leaves and branches in your 0 to 5 foot or out to your eave-line. No woody mulch, right? You can only have inorganics in that area. And then, of course, you want to be keeping your roofs and your gutters clean. So hopefully everybody's already doing that from a fire preparedness lens. And then phase 2 which has to be implemented within 5 years, involves creation of that under eave safety zone, right? So removing any organic materials from that or anything flammable from that zone, and also replacing any combustible gates. So if you have a wooden gate attaching to your home, then you need to replace that with something that's non-combustible. And if you have any sheds or fencing, if you have fencing that attaches to your home or sheds in that close perimeter, then you need to make necessary adjustments to those as well.
As UC Extension Master Gardeners, do you have like a website people can go and get information about how to start thinking about this for their own home?
Yeah, so again, we're waiting for the final version of the legislation before we update our website. We will absolutely update our website. We are part of a parent organization, which is the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources Division. And we have an incredible fire work group that works across the state that also creates extensive resources. So there's lots of great UC website resources as well. So between our individual program in Sonoma County, we'll get our information updated, and then there'll also be resources updated on these resources available statewide from UC Ag and Natural Resources.
What do you really want folks to know at this point about Zone Zero?
The legislation's going into effect because it's a really important preparedness effort that we can do to try to protect our homes and structures during a wildfire event. It's backed by scientific research. We always say you want to start with hardening your home and then move out into your landscape from there. And your next step after hardening your home is implementing your Zone Zero. For sure, if you're in a higher fire severity zone, if you live adjacent to the wildland-urban interface, what we call the WUI, you might want to still consider full implementation of nothing, no vegetation, no flammables, no combustibles in that 0 to 5 foot zone. It's really your best defense for helping prevent the incursion of embers breaking into your home and spreading fire into your home. So it's being legislated for a reason. I know folks won't be happy about it, especially if there is some enforcement, but it's really an incredibly important thing that we're all doing to protect our own homes. And when we're protecting our own homes, we're hopefully protecting our neighbors and folks adjacent to us from spreading fire as well. I know none of us like to get more government regulation, but it really is an incredibly important thing we can be doing from a fire preparedness lens.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Mimi, for talking to me about this.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, Greta.
That's Mimi Enright with the UC Master Gardener Program of Sonoma County. Thank you for joining us on North Bay 101, where each week KRCB and North Bay journalists bring you the stories shaping California's North Bay. Our thanks to today's reporters and experts. That's KQED Science reporter Danielle Venton and UC Master Gardener Program of Sonoma County Coordinator Mimi Enright. For more updates, follow along at krcb.org. New episodes drop every Friday on YouTube, the NorCal Public Media app, all major podcast platforms, right here on KRCB 104.9, Sonoma County's NPR station. This episode of the North Bay 101 was edited and produced by Max Allen, engineered by Mark Prowl, production assistance by Noah Abrams and Chandra Back, with digital support by Kelly Olson. KRCB FM is managed by Catherine Nelson. Our president and CEO is Darren Lachelle. I'm KRCB News Director Greta Mart. The nation's founders recognized a free press as an essential protection for the people. Today, KRCB's newsroom carries that responsibility with reporting that's accountable to the community we serve. Support trusted local journalism at krcb.org. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.